Here we go. So what we're going to do this morning is I will do the introductions, and then the person speaking will be the only person on the large screen, just so you're aware. My name is Jennifer Prell. I am the president and founder of ElderWorks Educational Services. We are a not-for-profit 501c3 offering senior living advocacy, education, and support. If anyone needs help finding any type of senior housing care or support services in the state of Illinois, southern Wisconsin, ElderWorks is a complimentary service and can help you with that. We are experts in senior housing because we tour often and we know which communities are good at what services and which communities are not so good at what services. So please contact ElderWorks with questions. Thank you all for attending today, and to our speakers for participating in this panel. Today, we're going to ask each panelist to introduce themselves and explain what their organization does, and then we'll ask them a few questions. So first, what I'm going to do is introduce each person with their biography so everyone knows who they are. The first one is Mr. Randall Tyner. He is the Assistant Attorney General assigned to the Military and Veterans Rights Bureau in the Office of the Illinois Attorney General, where he works to ensure that Illinois' service members and veterans and their families receive the benefits, rights, and protections they've earned by serving our great nation. He is a graduate of Loyola University Chicago School of Law, having earned his Juris Doctorate in May 2001. Mr. Tyner received a BA in Political Science from Loyola University Chicago, summa cum laude in May 1998. He is currently a member of the American Bar Association, the Illinois State Bar Association, and the Cook County Bar Association. Mr. Tyner is currently a member of the ISBA Standing Committee on Military Affairs. He's a former Cook County Assistant State's Attorney, a retired Marine Corps Gunnery Sergeant, and a Marine Security Guard Detachment Commander. He's a life member of Disabled Americans Veterans, DAV. He's a life member of the Marine Corps League, currently belonging to the Chicago Police Marines chapter. He is also a member of the American Legion and is a past commander of the American Legion's 2nd District of Chicago. Welcome, Mr. Tyner.
Thank you. Good morning.
You're welcome. So I'm going to just go ahead and let you introduce yourself and talk a little bit about what you do.
Okay, great. So I am an Assistant Attorney General in the Military and Veterans Rights Bureau of the State of Illinois Office of the Attorney General. A little bit about our office. In that bureau, the Military and Veterans Rights Bureau, there are 3 attorneys and 1 military and veteran advocate who is not an attorney. 2 of those attorneys and the advocate are veterans. And in fact, both of those 2 attorneys that are veterans are military retirees, one of them being myself and the other being the bureau chief. And the other attorney is not a veteran only because he's currently a JAG officer in the reserves. So once he finishes his service to his country, he'll then be a veteran. But right now he's considered a service member. So I think it would be fair to say that collectively, at least, our bureau is pretty well versed in service member and veteran related affairs and concerns. So we kind of have a handle on a lot of it. Our job is to ensure that Illinois service members and veterans and their families, as you said before, receive the benefits, rights, and protections that they earn through military service. Our office contends with a wide variety of legal and financial concerns affecting military and veteran communities, including housing issues, employment rights, VA benefits assistance, consumer fraud, scams, and a lot more. We do that in a variety of means, including, first of all, education, like these seminars and other presentations and programs. We do it through outreach programs that include providing educational materials like fact sheets and or brochures on a variety of subjects related to different rights and benefits of Illinois service members and veterans, including a consumer alert brochure that would be appropriate for today that warns veterans about certain benefit scams, more specifically related to the aid and attendance program that I will be speaking on today. And we do that outreach through booklets, like our booklet on benefits for Illinois veterans. That's just to mention a few of the things that we do. All of those brochures and books and booklets and fact sheets are available on our website for download. And if you contact us, we will mail them to you if you're not able to download them yourselves. We also advocate on behalf of service members and veterans, and in certain cases, we'll attempt mediation in areas like both the federal and the state Service Member Employment and Reemployment Rights Acts and the Service Member Civil Relief Acts. And finally, we investigate allegations of pattern and practice violations of certain state-based military rights. And where warranted, we will pursue and support enforcement actions related to those issues. Service members and veterans can contact us through our website. It's easy to Google us, the Illinois Attorney General's Office, Military and Veterans Rights, and it comes right up to our page. And they could contact us. We do have a helpline, an 800 number, 800-382-3000. And inside that bureau, more specifically, I'm kind of the go-to for consumer-related issues involving service members, veterans, and their families. And that's what brings me here today.
We're very glad to have you. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
I'm going to go ahead and introduce Melissa Wick now. Melissa Wick is an elder law attorney with more than 25 years of experience, and she concentrates her practice in advising clients and their families on how to protect their hard-earned life savings from the devastating costs of long-term healthcare needs. She focuses on estate planning, including Medicaid applications, VA aid and attendance, guardianship, and other elder law issues. Thank you, Melissa, for being here today. Please tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yes, good morning, and thank you very much. I am an elder law attorney, and I have a practice in Woodstock and Crystal Lake. I cover Lake and McHenry counties. And people ask me, what is an elder law attorney? I usually tell them that it's an estate planning attorney on steroids. What we are concerned about is not just planning for the time after you pass, but also planning for asset protection during life, concerns for the lack of capacity, and what happens when we don't have what we need in place. I like to make sure that we are always taking a look at our current estate planning conversations. We work together for advanced planning, which would include wills and trusts and special needs trust plans when appropriate. I do death probates when that becomes necessary, as well as guardianships when that is not, when it's warranted because we don't have in place the necessary documentation. I'm also a Medicaid advisor. I do spend a lot of time with families who are concerned about the cost of long-term care and how do we avoid losing all of our current assets in the preparation and payment of long-term care needs for family members. So we do asset protection planning, and we do applications for Medicaid as well as veteran benefits to protect hard-earned assets. I do Medicaid appeals, but the majority of my planning is done to try to avoid having the crisis that comes with the lack of planning. We pre-plan to stay in control. We do our best to help you choose trustworthy individuals when you can't be in control. Our goal is the greatest asset protection as available to you today. We go over what are the important tools that need to be in your toolbox as an estate planning attorney. So if you haven't already pre-planned using trusts and wills and powers of attorney, that would be a goal for anybody who wants to stay in control and wants to protect their hard-earned assets. And I also take care of families when there is no plan in place. And if there is no plan in place, then we're relying on what the state of Illinois will allow us to do, which might include intestate rules of asset distribution. It might include requirements for guardianship. So I've been in practice for more than, as you said, Jennifer, 25 years, the last 10 of which has been entirely based on planning and working with families who are in need.
Thank you, Melissa. Appreciate that.
Sure.
And our last panelist is Greg Berry. Mr. Berry is an attorney at Zukowski, Rogers, Flood, and McCardle. He focuses his practice on elder law, wills, and trusts, and intellectual property and real estate. He also serves as McHenry County's public guardian and public administrator. Following his appointment by the governor on October 18, 2019, As public guardian, he serves as the court-appointed guardian for adults with disabilities in our community who have nobody else to help them with their personal and financial well-being, to avoid them from becoming a ward of the state if possible. As the public administrator, he's responsible for overseeing and administrating probate estates in our county when no family member is available, as I said, to protect them. And he can serve as the executor so the estate's not run by creditors. Thank you for attending today, and take it away.
Thanks, Jennifer. Yeah, so as Jennifer said, I'm an attorney. My office is Zukowski, Rogers, Flood, McArdle in Crystal Lake. I've been there for almost 15 years. I live in Woodstock, and it's most of my practice is in McHenry County with some in Lake and Kane. At the firm, I head up our estate trusts and probate group. So in that capacity, I handle things on the transactional side. So estate planning, everything from small estates to estates where we've got to factor in taxation. And then in terms of court work, everything from guardianships to contested, uncontested, or probate cases as well, where we have to administer a probate estate. And then as the public administrator of McHenry County, if someone passes away and has an estate which needs to be probated and there's no family who's able to do that, or if there's a conflict, sometimes I'm the court appointed administrator to handle the estate and make sure everything gets handled properly. And as the public guardian of McHenry County, I'm also available to serve on either a court-appointed basis or otherwise to serve as the guardian either of the person or of the estate or both of a disabled adult in McHenry County who might not have somebody else there to represent their interests. The Office of the State Guardian also has a role. So if someone is completely indigent, then I might step in for the time being and then work on how to facilitate transitioning their care over to the Office of State Guardian. So sort of the guardian or administrator of second to last resort. And then I also try to generally be a resource for people in the community who might not have anywhere else to go for guardianship questions, estate administration. Strictly speaking, it's not exactly a function of the Office of Public Guardian, but I try to just act as a resource to the community for any kind of questions or guidance on estate administration or more importantly, guardianship. So thanks for having me and looking forward to fielding some questions here today.
Thank you. All right, so I'm going to change the view here because we're all going to participate in these fun things that we're going to do now to help people in our communities. So we're going to talk now about scams, concerns, and how to protect local people in Illinois. I mean local because it's Illinois who we're focusing on, and laws do vary state by state. So we are only focusing on the laws of Illinois, okay? Mr. Tyner, if you can just tell us a little bit about like the top 3 scams or fraud situations that are occurring that we should be aware of, and maybe how we can protect ourselves from those scams, that would be fabulous.
Great. So I was really happy to be asked to come here today to speak on frauds and scams targeting veterans and their families, since it's kind of my forte. Illinois actually is one of the more veteran-friendly states, and that's a good thing since we do have the 10th largest veteran population in the country. I don't know if you're aware, but we average somewhere in the neighborhood of 600,000 veterans statewide. Or have averaged that over the last 3 years. Nearly 6% of those are military retirees, and a little over half of them are age 65 or older. The issues that we've seen in recent years is that veterans and their families have become prime targets for consumer frauds and scams. It's the bigger issue we've seen is that the numbers in terms of monetary losses to those veterans as compared to the losses of their civilian counterparts has only increased year over year. There are a lot of different types of scams out there targeting veterans, but the biggest area of concern we see, and at least one of the ones that I want to address today, are scams related to helping veterans obtain VA benefits. There are two types of benefits in particular I'd like to address, and those are service-connected or VA disability benefits and non-service connected pensions, also known as the aid and attendance pension or the housebound pension sometimes. Regarding service-connected pensions, a lot of veterans leave active duty with permanent injuries that they occurred during service, some visible, others not so much. Injuries for which they could be compensated, and some apply for that compensation through the VA, and of those, some receive compensation, others may not, or may receive some compensation but feel they're undercompensated. And still others may leave the service either not knowing they could have received compensation or just not wanting to bother to find out. So scammers are aware of all of these different situations, and they target those veterans under the pretense of helping them when in fact they're really just looking to line their own pockets. They reach out to veterans in a variety of ways: internet advertising, mailings, seminars. They advertise that they can get the veteran VA benefits or that they can increase their benefits for some veterans that are already receiving VA benefits. Some go so far as to offer guarantees, which, by the way, if you see that, it's a serious red flag because no one can guarantee that the VA will find in your favor. The VA won't even guarantee that. They may offer access to doctors who can conduct your exams and report findings to the VA, exams that in most cases have to be paid for by the veteran. Another red flag. They'll offer to do all the work for you, like gathering the documents, filling out the paperwork, even filing the claim. And this is a serious red flag that anyone that assists veterans with VA benefits claims by law must be accredited, VA accredited, through the VA's Office of General Counsel, even just to sit down with you and discuss the program and what they could do for you and what is available. So, you know, we generally in these presentations tell veterans, you know, when you run into a situation like this and someone's, you know, wanting to help you with VA claims and benefits, ask them for their accreditation information. And if they don't give it, it's probably a scam. Look them up on the Office of General Counsel website. They have a search website where you can search a person by name and location and find out whether or not they're accredited. What these people don't do, what they don't advertise, they don't tell you that the veterans themselves can do all of this on their own for free. Everything they need is provided for by the VA, including VA accredited veteran service officers who can help navigate the process. Other assistance is also available for free from VA accredited representatives of various veteran service organizations like the American Legion or the VFW or Disabled American Veterans, just to name a few. Or apropos for this particular presentation, your local county VAC can help or point you in the right direction to accredited personnel who can help you. There's VA accredited claims agents out there that can help you. And finally, there are literally thousands of VA accredited attorneys out there. And the decisions about when and how much and what they can do and what they can charge for their assistance is governed by federal statute. So you know you're covered, at least, as long as you find out that whoever you're dealing with, they are VA accredited. So that's a big thing to look for. With respect to non-service connected pensions or aid and attendance pensions, those are needs-based pensions provided to wartime veterans and their surviving spouses. Many, if not most, veterans and their families don't even know of the existence of this program or the circumstances under which they might be eligible to apply for it. There are, however, a lot of scammers out there who are aware of this benefit and they know just how to exploit it. They target elderly veterans, surviving spouses. They through internet ads or mass mailings. They reach out to nursing homes, assisted living centers, home care providers. They draw contracts with them to use them if they provide them referrals. They give presentations, leave flyers and brochures. They ask all of these people for referrals. The scams related to this benefit vary a little bit depending on the circumstances of the veteran or surviving spouse who comes to them seeking assistance. If that veteran or surviving spouse already meets the criteria required to qualify for benefits, those schemes are pretty simple. They pretty much mimic the previously mentioned scam surrounding service-connected pensions. They'll offer assistance obtaining the benefits. They might offer guarantees. They might offer access to providers, offer to do all the work. And of course, they charge a fee or make some other arrangement where they get control over or access to some cases, all of the benefits that the veteran's going to receive. Same red flags. There are no guarantees. Everyone should be accredited that you're dealing with. And there are plenty of people out there that will do that work for you free of charge. Same solutions apply. You can file a claim on your own, or you can seek help from a VA accredited source. But in another scenario on aid and attendance pensions, since they're needs-based, the criteria for qualifying includes income caps and asset thresholds. So scammers are well versed in all of the different criteria that have to be met, and they know how to work around those criteria. So in at least one criteria, they use workarounds that can have pretty disastrous consequences for a veteran or a surviving spouse, and that's the asset threshold. Scammers will offer to assist the veteran or the spouse to meet the required criteria and to qualify for the benefit, even knowing that their assets don't meet the threshold. They'll convince the veteran or the surviving spouse to hide assets by doing things like transferring their assets to a family member or putting assets into an irrevocable trust. They'll convince them to purchase unnecessary and expensive insurance products, which, by the way, also puts money in their pockets. Or they'll convince them to purchase annuities, again, which also puts money in their pockets and ties up that person's money that they may really need later on, but not be able to access until they pay early access fees. And while the act of doing any one of those things, transferring assets, annuities, insurance policies, the act of doing any one of those things in and of itself is not illegal, the consequences are the problem. That consequences that could have on the veteran or surviving spouse can be disastrous sometimes. Sometimes the veteran or the spouse can actually end up still not qualifying for the benefits, and now all their assets are tied up and they can't access them, and they've wasted a lot of money. Or they could later become disqualified because of some of these things they've done and have to pay back any benefits that they have received from the VA. Medicaid, for an example, while aid and attendance doesn't have a look-back period, Medicaid has a 60-month look-back period. So certain transfers of assets can make you ineligible to receive Medicaid services. So veterans and surviving spouses may find themselves unable to access their assets at times when they really need them, or they could find themselves disqualified for other benefits that they would normally qualify for, but now that they've been caught doing something that would affect that, on the advice of a scammer, of course, they find themselves in pretty dire straits sometimes. I could go on about the aid and attendance benefit, but I'm sure you're getting the point. There are a lot of things out there that these scammers will do on the pretense, like I said before, of we're here to help, but really they're just there to make a profit. I can't say enough. There are no guarantees. Everyone you deal with should be accredited, and there are plenty of people out there to help you free of charge. I mean, I don't know how much my time allotment is here. I do have one other pension related or benefits related scam I'll mention if I have a couple minutes.
You're fine, go ahead.
Okay, great, thank you. So another benefit scam related again to military retiree pensions and VA benefits or pensions is the pension advance loan scam. It's kind of a big moneymaker in some cases. Pension advance loans offer lump sum advances on a veteran's pension payments. They target low-income military retirees and or veterans receiving pensions or service-connected benefits. They offer the veteran a large sum of money in exchange for part and sometimes all of their pension or other compensation payments for a fixed period of time, which is usually over several years. They'll tack on setup fees and other things. And the issue that comes up is when you do the math, you realize that what you really got in exchange for that lump sum of money, whatever it was an extremely high interest rate loan, sometimes as high as 100, even 200% or more, and a loss of that amount of your monthly income for the duration of the payback period. So, I mean, sometimes it puts veterans in an endless cycle of having to take out loans and just try and keep up. These loans often come with a requirement that you provide a life insurance policy, basically to ensure that if something happens to you, the scammer still gets their money. The issue with that life insurance policy is that too is paid for by the veteran. Veterans should steer clear of these types of financial pitfalls, and not just because they're predatory. With regard to these pension loan advance scams, veterans need to be made aware that it's illegal for any loan company to take a retiree pension or any other VA compensation or pension benefits. Retirees, by law, cannot assign their pay, and by law, any such assignment is void. And you can find that under Title 37 of the U.S. Code, subsection 701C. Veterans, likewise, who are receiving VA compensation or pensions cannot assign their pay either. Additionally, VA compensations and benefits or pensions are exempt from creditor claims in most cases and cannot be attached, levied, or seized. That you can find under Title 38 of the U.S. Code, subsection 5301A1. I could go on and on. I mean, there are so many scams out there in my line of work. I mean, it's my job to research that. And I just did a presentation on frauds and scams. I couldn't get anywhere near all-inclusive or even exhaustive. There was just so much out there. There are grandparent scams and family member scams, imposter scams, phishing scams. The list just goes on and on. I'll leave it at this. Veterans and their families have to be vigilant. We all do.
Thank you. I agree. It takes a village.
It does.
Sure. Okay, so I think we're going to go ahead and go on over to Melissa. Melissa, would you like to list the top 3 concerns the older adults and families are concerned about as they're aging when they come to you for help?
I would be really happy to do that with you, Jennifer. For most of the families who come in to visit with me, their biggest question is why do we plan? Why do we pre-plan? Why don't we just let it happen to chance? And for most families, my goal is for them to stay in control. It's important because if you're not making the choice of who it is that you think is trustworthy and can be in control when you no longer are making decisions for yourself, then we are at a loss. And then it's very likely that somebody who you don't necessarily trust is going to step into the role of making decisions for you. So pre-planning is more than just what are we going to do when we pass away, but what are we going to do when we can't make decisions for ourselves anymore? And ultimately, pre-planning is the way to obtain that control, how to maintain that control. Pre-planning will also provide us the greatest opportunity in which to protect our assets, whether that's assets through the time frame of us being alive and healthy, and then after we no longer are competent and able to manage our own affairs. How do we protect our assets from those individuals that might not be looking in for our best interest? Not to mention all the scammers that we just heard Randall Tyner share with us. So the biggest question is why? Why do we pre-plan? And that is to stay into control. The next question that I often understand from my folks is what tools do we use to stay in control? What tools do we use to protect those assets? And for me, the most important tool in an estate planning toolbox is going to be those powers of attorney. The powers of attorney for healthcare and the power of attorney for finances. There are two of them. Those are lifetime documents. They're only valid while you're alive. So it's important to have those in a toolbox. If you do nothing else, those two documents are the most important because they give somebody else the legal authority to make decisions for you and to use your finances at a time when you are no longer able to do that. It's the best way to keep things private. When you are in a situation where you're no longer in control because of death, I'm sorry, not death. If you're not in control because of incompetency or you've been ill and you need somebody to make choices for you, you have had the opportunity by pre-planning to appoint somebody that you trust. Whoever is in control can assist you. Whoever is in control can make decisions about your health care and decisions about your finances and help you to protect those finances. Now, those powers of attorney are powerful. They do give a lot of authority to people. So you have the opportunity to make those powers of attorney springing. And by that, I mean, they only become effective when you're not able to make decisions for yourself anymore. So it gives us a chance to pre-plan for that period of time. The biggest reasons I use those powers of attorney and the most important reason why I say it is the document you need no matter what is because it avoids a guardianship. And guardianship is what we have to do when that power of attorney isn't in place. A guardianship is a legal process whereby we get authority to manage your financial affairs and to make decisions for someone who's incompetent and not mentally capable of making decisions for healthcare and finances anymore. Guardianship is expensive, it's time consuming, it is not private because it's a part of the courts. All of your finances are disclosed, and eventually a judge is going to make decisions about what it is that you can do with your finances and how you're going to be cared for going forward. So that's really important. Powers of attorney. As far as death documents, we also need wills and trusts and the other documents that help us to make decisions about what happens to our assets after we pass away. We would like to, again, stay in control of where those assets are to be distributed after death. But that's not just it. We also have to review your paid on death designations, your beneficiary designation forms, your joint tenancy ownerships. All of these go into pre-planning. They're all part of an estate plan. And if you're not thinking ahead about these things, then unintended consequences are likely to happen. And those unintended consequences are, what if we don't pre-plan? What if we're not making decisions while we're healthy and able to do that? Well, it depends. I've already pointed out that if you don't have powers of attorney in place while you're alive, if you become incompetent, one of the consequences is having to have a court-appointed guardian through a guardianship. And Mr. Berry is going to speak a little bit more about guardianships, I know, because as a public guardian, he does a lot of that type of work for assistance with families that haven't received the pre-planning time frame. So ultimately, during life, guardianship is the result of not pre-planning. After death, well, then we have other issues. If you haven't planned for your estate, then the court again is going to appoint who is in control. We're going to be using the intestate statute in Illinois, which tells us how your assets are going to be paid out. Now that can be a problem if we have families that are not getting along, or it can be a problem if we have second marriages and we have families that are split. These are the kinds of things that pre-planning and making sure that we have thought through what is going to happen. It's important to do that. Otherwise, we lose control. Another reason to pre-plan is what happens if you have real estate in more than one state. Well, if you're not planning correctly, you're likely to have two probate estates in order to resolve the land issues in the state of Illinois, and if you have a condo in Florida or Arizona. So why do we plan? Well, we plan to stay in control. We plan in order to appoint those people that we think are going to be trustworthy and who are going to follow our wishes in a manner that we have outlined for them. And it's clear and it doesn't surprise anyone. So those are the three top concerns I have when it comes to planning. I do also spend a lot of time working with families about what if we don't plan and we have a long-term care need. And of course, Medicaid becomes a potential conversation. So it's important that to know that we can pre-plan for Medicaid concerns as well, so that we can do some asset protection and make sure that the assets are available for healthy folks and to also protect assets for those that are ill. So pre-planning, making sure that you're making decisions based on the situation today and looking ahead at what is the possibility for tomorrow.
Thank you, Melissa. It's so true. We get, oh God, thousands of calls a year of people in crisis because mom said she's going out feet first and says the kids will take care of it. Well, I guess she didn't like her kids because it's not fun. My parents, if they did that to me, I'd be so angry. I'd be going, why? Anyway, we're going to go ahead and introduce Greg Berry. Greg is a friend of mine as well, just as Melissa's, and Randall Tyner is a new friend. So typically Elder works with those who have the public's interest in their heart and in the human side of things, right? So today we are going to ask Greg about his three concerns in the guardianship's office, what he's seeing with the adult population and some things that concern him maybe, and some solutions hopefully. So Greg, that's a long one, sorry.
No, thanks, Melissa, Jennifer. Yeah, I think Melissa really stated everything really well from, the attorney's point of view. So I guess from, the guardianship and maybe more specifically, my role as public guardian, three main concerns would be: one, demographic collapse and the resulting lack of support networks for seniors. Two, difficulty in coordinating benefits across different programs. And then three, just informational overload, which results in almost an inability to do anything. So in terms of lack of support networks, it's just sort of a nature of the beast. Generations ago, families would have, 4, 5, 6 kids. That would be uncommon. And now I'm finding, that my own family with 3 kids, we have a big family from most people's perspective. So all it takes is for, one kid to have mental health issues, somebody else moves away, and then the full weight of caring for aging parents falls on either one kid if you're lucky, or there might not be anybody around. So that can be very stressful for either the one family member who is taking care of everything, or friends, neighbors who might start out helping, but then as the aging process kind of takes its natural course, they're taking on more and more and more, and eventually there's a breaking point. So unfortunately, that's where I tend to get involved in court cases a lot, is because there's someone you need of help, assistance, whatever it may be, and there's no one there to care for them, unfortunately. And I think I don't know what the solution is to that, but that's a huge problem. And then in terms of coordination of benefits, again, I think Illinois has a lot of great things going for it. There are programs that can help people, but practically speaking, how people are able to take advantage of those programs, it's a nightmare. I mean, Medicaid's a great example of that. There's, elder law attorneys like, Melissa, who are able to really address that aspect of it. And, but it's very difficult for families to navigate that on their own unless they go to an expert who's really able to, look at the entire web of regulations and sort of point them in the right direction. And then even within Medicaid itself, there's Medicaid for long-term care, there's Medicaid for just regular healthcare benefits, and sometimes the application can go sideways, and then, I've seen situations where someone's trying to apply for their spouse, and then, they get a Medicaid app, they find out that they're now a Medicaid recipient just out of the blue because somebody at the Department of Human Services was trying to do the right thing, maybe made a little bit of a mistake. So just trying to coordinate all of that can be incredibly challenging. And then I guess that ties into my, the third concern, which is related to that, is just an absolute information overload. And that's, it's great that we've got the internet to help us out with making a whole bunch of information available. But sometimes it's trying to drink out of a fire hose. There's just so much coming at you. You don't know what sources are reputable, especially, and that, ties back into Randall's point about there could be bad actors out there. Sometimes some people are ethical and some aren't, and everyone's giving you information. It can be tough, especially if, this is a new situation to you. Now you're dealing with, how do I care for somebody? How do I, process and distill all this information into an action plan to really coordinate benefits? And again, there's people who can help you, there's experts that are available, but not knowing where to go can be a huge impediment to actually getting support and care for people in need. So it's tough to say what the solutions are. I think if there were solutions, we might not even be here today. But my one recommendation would be just to, if you're a caregiver, try to get over that hurdle of just not doing anything. Be persistent, be pushy, reach out. If people don't get back to you, just bug the heck out of them, and demand answers. The people who are there on a paid basis, well, if they're going to take your money, they should be getting back to you. If they're there on a volunteer basis, well, then they should have the public interest at heart, and they're probably supported on one level or another by your tax dollars. So be polite, persistent, and firm, and try to get some answers and follow up. So I guess that's all I have. All I have in terms of solutions is try to be good as an advocate for yourself and for others. And
be the squeaky wheel is what I heard.
Yeah. Be a jerk like me. So.
Excellent. Yeah. Well, sometimes we need everybody that's really nice to be not so nice.
Yeah.
So you'll all unmute yourselves. We don't have any questions from the attendees yet. Hopefully they will come through with some. I have always questions because, inquiring minds want to know. So, Mr. Tyler, I have heard of many, many, many situations of fraud in Illinois with veterans in terms of benefits. I actually have heard of some out of Illinois. What happens if there's a veteran out of Illinois? I know this isn't your territory, but the person who we're talking to is in Illinois and their loved one's in another state, and they've contacted like a home care agency who says they'll help them apply for the benefit, but they get half for life or whatever. What do you tell those folks when they're getting scammed in other states?
Well, I don't know to just take it literally for the way you explained it. I think the first instinct would be to ask a lot of questions of that person to get a little more information. But if the situation all took place out of state, the first thing we'd probably do is recommend that they contact their local Attorney General's office to see if there's anything that they could do there. Like I said before, Illinois is a very veteran-friendly state, and my partners and I were just discussing this recently, but I think the Military and Veterans Rights Bureau here in Illinois is the only one of its kind across the country. A lot of other Attorney General's offices or Attorneys General offices have people that handle military and veterans rights, issues. But I, so far at least, haven't come across an AG's office that has a bureau that just handles military and veterans rights. So, I mean, there are people in other offices across the country, of course, that deal with veteran and service member issues. Yeah, I mean, probably the first thing we would do would be to refer them to that. If it's a benefits issue, we would certainly tell them to contact the VA and file a report or an incident claim with the VA's Office of General Counsel, who provides and monitors accreditation. But yeah, there probably, I mean, just cursorily, it doesn't sound like there's a lot we could do.
Is there a network of that? Like, I know there's the VA, who's the big boy in the room, but is there a way to track the scammers who are going across the country to scam people? I mean, we have you, we're lucky we have you, but not every state does. So how do we track those lovely folks?
So I appreciate that question. I actually had a couple of questions about that kind of thing put aside and have a couple of answers here. That question to me relates to what resources are out there to help veterans navigate these murky and dangerous waters.
Right.
There's a lot of information out there that's available to service members, veterans, and their families, including how to recognize scams and what to do about them. Some resources include the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, who has an Office of Service Member Affairs, and information related to service members and veterans, scams, educational materials, assistance in finances in general and/or scams is available at their website. It's kind of a long one, so I won't say the whole thing, but if you go to the consumerfinance.gov website and search service members, you'll come to it. It's under Consumer Tools.
Okay.
The Federal Trade Commission has a military task force, but when you search the FTC website using the terms of military or veteran, it sends you to a sub website, I guess, of theirs, militaryconsumer.gov, GOV, and there you can find information and advice and assistance related to scams and frauds. The Better Business Bureau has a scam tracking website, and they regularly publish risk reports that can be found on their bbb.org BBB Scam Tracker Risk Report website. Surprisingly, like I said, I just did a lot of research on frauds and scams targeting service members and veterans across the country. And a huge source of very good information was found on the AARP website. They have a Fraud Watch Network website. Again, a very long one. So if you just go to the AARP website and search or Google scams and frauds and veterans, you'll find a lot of information there.
Okay.
For anyone in general, the AARP publishes a watchdog alert handbook. And for veterans in particular, they do have a veterans edition of that handbook. And always, I would tell anyone in any state, not just Illinois, that they are encouraged to reach out to our office or their local AG office. And in Illinois, most specifically, to the Military and Veterans Rights Bureau. And we're here to help. I did have another question put aside that kind of ties into this. It's what protections are out there right now to protect veterans from being targeted and or taken advantage of by unscrupulous actors who say they want to help, but actually just want to help themselves. With regard to the topics that I brought up today, VA benefit scams, there are actually federal laws on the books that require anyone assisting veterans to obtain or increase VA benefits to be accredited, which I mentioned before. There are other laws that require fiduciaries for veterans receiving benefits to meet certain statutorily defined responsibilities, and still other laws that require online standards of or outline standards of conduct for anyone representing veterans before the VA. The problem with these statutes is, of course, that for the most part, they're all bark and no bite. They don't have an investigative arm, and they have no mechanism for enforcement. So take accreditation, for example. If someone's reported to the Office of General Counsel as not being accredited, and they're still helping veterans with benefits claims, the only thing that the Office of General Counsel currently can do is send them a cease and desist letter. When they ignore that, the VA's only recourse is to refer to the state and ask the state whether they have any statute on the books that can be used to enforce that federal statute. While Illinois currently doesn't have any such statute, our office has been working with the Illinois Department of Veterans Affairs to remedy that. So recently we drafted legislation that included an amendment to the Illinois Consumer Fraud and Deceptive Practices Act that will enable our office to investigate alleged violations of those statutes regarding accreditation, fiduciary duties, and rules of conduct. And it provides a mechanism for enforcement here in Illinois. So that legislation just passed the Illinois House, went to the Senate into committee, passed out of committee last week, I think.
Wow.
It's currently awaiting a vote before the full Illinois Senate. So fingers crossed.
So we'll have more teeth is what you're saying.
Let's hope so. That's the plan. Yes.
Excellent. We did get some questions, so I'm going to go ahead and read them. Gregory, what towns in Kane County does your office cover? I work at Senior Service Associates here in Kane County. Inquiring minds want to know.
Sure. I'm happy to meet anybody anywhere, which is much easier now that there's virtual technology set up. But really, there's no limit. It's Kane County is just one of the courthouses that I cover. So between Kane, Lake, and McHenry, that's sort of where I focus. So really anywhere in Kane County.
Excellent. Thank you. Another question. I'll go ahead and give this one to Melissa. What do you do when power of attorney is in place and there's an incompetency, but the parent is unwilling to yield control to the person designated? What do we need to do? How do we get what we need from a medical doctor or other professional to move forward?
This is a common problem. If you hearken back to my little speech, what I was talking about is staying in control. It's often difficult when a parent is losing control. They tend to want to fight against that. It's understandable that they've done everything they could to stay in control for as long as they can. And incompetency is a medical need. It is a need to know from either a medical doctor or other professional that they are no longer able to make decisions for themselves. That's not always easy to obtain because there are plenty of people who are just on the cusp of incompetency but aren't fully incompetent. And as long as somebody can speak for themselves, they can make rational decisions, and they're able to express those concerns, needs, and decisions, they are in control. So unfortunately, unless you do have somebody in the medical profession or in the neurological field that can say with definity that this individual is not able to make decisions for themselves anymore, then you're going to have to allow them to continue to do so. Of course, if it becomes a serious crisis, that's generally when we end up getting involved. That's generally when something happens that they're not taking care of themselves, or they are in some way neglecting their health care, or they are somehow allowing spam to happen and fraud to take place and things like that. Well, we might very well have to go into court, unfortunately, and obtain guardianship in that matter, even if there is powers of attorney in place. Our goal, of course, is to have no guardianship if possible, but it's really going to totally depend upon the status of the mental capacity of the individual principal who signed those agreements. It's a gray area for families. It's often full of stress. It's often full of conflict. But more often than not, it takes some kind of catalytic event, whether it's a health issue or they fall or something of that nature, before we actually have the ability to push it beyond their control.
Thank you. Greg, ElderWorks gets a lot of calls with people crying. The ones we hate are when the loved one's been scammed. I was just in a conversation with a caregiver whose mom has been sending money to a person of a love interest over the internet, and has sent over $50,000 and sent it, put it on her credit card, so she could have money, got a money advance. She put a second mortgage on her home to get money to send to this scammer. Are there ways we can help stop someone from doing that, sending the money overseas? Isn't there responsibility to the bank and the credit card companies to find out the lies, or no? Is there not?
No, unfortunately, none whatsoever. So from the bank's perspective, they're in a tough spot because, until they see paperwork otherwise, they kind of have to assume that everybody they deal with has, the same autonomy and agency that you or I would. Even if there are some questions, and that's actually an interesting situation, because I found that I've been getting some calls from a couple of different banks, who are staffed with good people and have their customers' best interest at heart, and they're saying that, look, we think there's something going on here, what can we do? And so I think if they're not taking action, it's not because they don't want to, it's because they don't really see any alternative. And they might have, and banking really isn't my specialty, but they might have some kind of regulatory issue where if someone's saying, look, I'm their customer and I'm trying to put in an order and they're not processing it, then that's a problem for them. And unfortunately, the people who are going to fall prey to scammers might also tend to be a little more pushy than you or I in a public situation, and that might be causing a scene. So often, the bank is in a tough place, and so everyone kind of has to pull together and figure out, well, at what point is the general awkwardness, so problematic that we rip the Band-Aid off and actually go into court and get guardianship? Because really, that's the only thing that can stop it. A temporary guardianship can be a good solution for the time being. You can get court orders in place in a matter of days, but then ultimately you're in court against a family member or loved one. It's an adversarial setting, and it can be difficult, but that's really the only way to put a stop to that kind of behavior.
I'm going to leave this open to everybody. Maybe one of you know. So is there a way a bank could ask the senior or the older adult for their power of attorney for finance to be put onto the account, so that if there is a question or concern, they can call that power of attorney to discuss? Can they do that? Or is it only implemented when someone's disabled?
It depends upon the language of the power of attorney itself. I mentioned that we can make powers of attorney springing, which means that they are only effective when somebody is determined to be incompetent. And usually that's by written notice of a physician. Many powers of attorney are immediately effective. And that's typical for spouses, especially. If you have a spouse that you want to be the agent under your power of attorney, it's not unusual for it to be an effective immediately, which means your spouse and you are acting in concert and that there is everything being done jointly. But unfortunately, it depends upon the language of the power of attorney about whether or not a bank has any authority to do anything. And so you have to look to the document. And of course, a bank is going to ask for a copy of that document and take it to their legal department before they do anything.
Yeah, I'm just trying to figure out if there's a way we can protect ourselves from ourselves. Because, you know, as we age, we think everybody's honest and then they're not. And millions and millions and millions of dollars are just taken from these people who need it as they age for their housing and their care, and they don't have it anymore because someone's taken it. So I think maybe we need to work on that legislation and put that in effect so that we can protect, I know this is my own opinion, to protect our seniors. I have a lot of ideas. They're never ever followed.
Well, the biggest problem with the guardianship area is that in order for you to obtain a guardianship over somebody, you have to have a medical evaluation that says that they're not competent to manage their own affairs. The problem with a guardianship and that then becomes that a judge is going to take away all of your rights. You have no rights to make decisions for yourself. You have no rights to manage and use your finances. You have no rights to say where you're going to live. It all goes into the hands of another entity, whether it's a judge making decisions, a family member or a friend making decisions, the public guardian making decisions. And because of that loss of control and the loss of your rights, judges tend to be very particular about the evidence to prove that somebody actually needs that help. So it's not unusual for individuals who are just making bad decisions to be allowed to make bad decisions, because bad decisions does not make you incompetent.
Right. Unfortunately, I know everybody here has seen so much. I'm sure there are ways banks can put limitations. So if it goes over a certain amount, they verify the amounts and things like that with people. But I just wish more people would think about this before they're older. You know, I mean, I know I'm going to have dementia, so I'm ready. I have things in place to protect my family because I know that eventually I won't be able to defend myself. And that's important. Control, planning, preparing now while you're like in your 50s versus 60, 70, 80, 90 is so much better. And let's go ahead with some final thoughts. Melissa, why don't we start with you? Do you have one final quick tidbit to help someone?
Whatever you have in place, take a look at it. If you are caring for somebody else, take a look at it. It's important to know what your rights are based on those documents. If you're not able to get those documents because they don't exist, move now to make those documents available if somebody's still able to do it. And if they're not, then be prepared for what will be coming next.
Thank you. Greg, same question.
Yeah, thanks. I think I would just add to Melissa's point that just think about the people in your life right now, and then think about what that's going to be like, 10 to 20 years in the future. If you're helping somebody right now, think about how their situation is going to be 20 years from now. And similarly, what your station in life is going to be 10 or 20 years, whether you'll still be able to keep providing for them, to keep helping them. And yeah, family history, like Jennifer had mentioned, if you think dementia is in your future, or how you've seen others in your family decline, it happens. If you're lucky, that kind of decline happens to all of us. It beats the alternative. So just try to bear that in mind. It's an unpleasant conversation to have with yourself. It's not a pleasant conversation to have with others. But we're all here because we see it happen day after day after day. So please, just be mindful of it, and be forward thinking and constantly evaluate.
Thank you. And Mr. Tyner, your final thought?
Yes, sure. Thank you. I would say, as I said before, be vigilant always. They say trust but verify. I say verify before you trust. Make good use of the resources that are available out there. If something smells bad, do your research. Reach out to all these different resources and educate yourself about all the different types of scams that are out there. Even before you get caught up in something like this, it's good to know what's out there, because it will then, when it happens to you, and it happens to a lot of us all the time, you'll be ready. It'll trigger something in your mind. Hey, I read about this, or I know about these kinds of things. So yeah, do your research, be vigilant, and verify before you trust.
Thank you. Thank you. I agree with everything you all said. One more thought for me, because, I always have an opinion, is talk to your kids. Talk, communicate. It is a hard conversation, as you said. No one wants to talk about their finances with their kids. Good, bad, or ugly, they don't want to do it. They don't want to talk about their health. It's all roses and unicorns all the time. That's not life, right? If your mom says she's fine all the time, maybe it's time to go visit mom and just make sure mom's fine, right? So be part of their lives. Don't be a distant viewer of your own family's lives. So thank you all for coming today. I know we're a little over, but I appreciate you all staying on. And if anyone has any questions, we will have your information available to any of these folks that have attended today. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yep. Bye-bye.
Thanks.